Do you find yourself wanting to elevate your wine tasting experience, but you're not sure where to begin? Well, I have got you covered. You have come to the right place because that's exactly what we are going to discuss in this video. As you hop on, drop a hi in the comments and share where you are watching from. If you're joining for the replay, add in #replay. My name is Tiffany, and I am so excited you are here for Tasty Tidbits with Tiff. I help busy millennials who feel overwhelmed in the kitchen learn new skills to create quick, healthy meals with wine pairings. Follow me on social media for daily tips, tricks, recipes, and inspiration. And be sure to set your alarm for 1 o'clock Central every Wednesday, where I go live right here for Tasty Tidbits with Tiff. In today's video, we are going to cover 3 simple tips that will help you elevate your taste buds to enjoy your next wine tasting experience at a whole new level. But that's not all. I also have a super simple strategy to help you elevate your next meal with a basic food and wine pairing strategy. So be sure to stick around until the end. Let's get started. So the first step is to pay attention to your context. Environment influences everything. This is not just when it comes to tasting wine, but your environment can influence pretty much every aspect of your life. And that includes your taste buds, not just your mood, not just if you find yourself having fun or enjoyable, but the environment that you're in when it comes to tasting wine also has a dramatic effect on your taste buds. So you want to sip at your best. When you go to taste wine, you want to be healthy. Now, this is the time of year where we often find ourselves with colds. So if you have sinus congestion or feel that cold coming on, you're not going to have the best wine tasting experience. So keep that in mind if you do venture out. You also want to make sure that you are well rested. Being sleep deprived affects so many parts of your life, including how you are going to feel about that wine that you are tasting. And dress your best. Don't go to the winery in loungewear, but put on a nice shirt. Put on some fancy jewelry. Break those nice shoes out of their box in the closet that's collecting dust. When you dress for your best, you feel your best, and you are going to have an even more enjoyable experience at that wine tasting. Now, another thing to keep in mind is to avoid eating or drinking anything before you go to the winery, especially foods that are going to be strong with garlic and onion. These flavors linger, and they will influence how your taste buds react to the wine that you'll be sampling. Now, of course, we want to have some palate cleansers, which most wineries will offer to you when you are doing a wine tasting. So these simple crackers are good to have in between the wines, but you want to avoid eating or drinking anything pungent leading up to your visit at the winery. Now, before we jump into the next 2 tips, I want to hear from you. When you're visiting a winery, do you typically go for wine by the glass, by the bottle, or in a tasting flight? Drop a 1 if you do the glass option, drop a 2 if you go the bottle route, and drop a 3 if you go for a tasting flight. I'm curious where everyone is at. I know when I first visit a winery, my usual go-to is a tasting flight so I can sample the best selection. But after I've been there a few times, my significant other and I will frequently split a bottle since we have similar tastes. But with other people, I'll go the glass route. It just kind of depends on where we're at, who I'm with, and again, the environment. So tip number 2 is to choose your wine carefully. So you want to start with varieties, especially if you are doing the tasting flight option. Start with varieties that are lower in alcohol content. Typically, these are going to have the most diverse flavors and be the most dimensional. So by starting with those lower alcohol content, you'll be able to taste all of the different levels and dimensions of that wine that it offers. Now, some of these samples that you might pick up on, especially the more wine that you sample, could be that level of acidity, because some wines are going to be more acidic than others. You might notice some oaky characteristics, some leather characteristics, licorice or spicy notes. You may even notice some notes in the aroma or flavor that are rather earthy or grass-like. These are all flavors that you can pick up on your nose or your tongue the more you taste wine and train your taste buds to pick up on those. But we'll save those tips for another day. Another fun way, if you are doing a winery hopping adventure, is to taste the same wine styles from different regions. Even if you go to the different wineries in the same state, all of those styles are going to differ just a little bit, because depending on where they got their grapes, whether they grew them on site or got them from elsewhere, depending on the variety, as well as their equipment. And all of that is going to vary with those wines. So even though it's the same style, you might notice subtle differences in the aromas and the flavors hitting your tongue. So it's always fun to try those out. And tip number 3 is to drink like a sommelier. How do you do this? By using the 4 S's. First, you see the wine. So as that wine is in your glass, really look at it. Note the color. Is it a white wine? Is it a red wine? What shade of white is it, or what shade of red? Note the clarity. When you notice those differences, you will start to see the wine differently, and it will then taste differently as well. Then you want to swirl the wine. So you're going to swirl it around in a circle, and again, note the consistency of that wine. Does it seem thick? Does it seem thin? Is it more of a syrup? What do you notice as you are swirling it? This also is going to help add some oxygen to the wine to really enhance the notes that are going to hit your nose as we jump into the next step and when you taste it. So that next step is to smell it. And this is one I like to do as I am swirling, because again, it adds that oxygen and really brings out the aromas in that wine. So when you smell it, there is a proper way. You want to not just inhale through your nose, but actually have your mouth open just a little bit. This is going to allow the aromas to fully hit your olfactory senses so you can smell it like never before. It's also going to prepare your taste buds for what they're about to experience in that last S, which is to sip the wine. And as you sip it, let it sit on your tongue for a couple seconds before you swallow. And then note any different flavors that linger after you swallow. Now, it's normal for wines to smell one way and taste a different way, but it's also normal for them to be exactly the same. And that is where your taste buds come in and what you pick up. While wine varieties have their own characteristic traits, they're still going to differ from person to person because all of our taste buds are unique to us. Now let's put these skills to use. Which winery are you going to visit next and give these a try? Drop the name in the comments. For those of you that are local to me here in the Midwest, this is a great way for us to share some recommendations to each other and spread the word about our fellow local wineries and small businesses. And those simple tips to help you elevate your taste buds for your next adult meal. First one, red with red and white with white. Generally speaking, your red wine is going to go best with your red meat, red tomato-based sauces, and white wine is going to go best with your white meat and your creamy garlic cheese-based sauces. But that's not always the case. Number 2, consider your sides and seasonings. When you are looking for the perfect wine to go with that meal, you want to look at the meal as a whole, not just at the main course. Those sides and seasonings are going to influence if you want a red or a white to fully bring that meal together. And number 3, sweet likes heat. Typically, with your spicy cuisines, a sweet wine is going to actually cut back on that spiciness and bring out other notes in the meal and making it more bearable. But of course, if you're wanting to accent the spice, grab yourself a dry wine. But remember, I warned you. If you want to keep that momentum going and create the perfect beverage experience for your next meal, drop wine in the comments and I will hook you up with my free basic food and wine pairing guide so you can become the wine pairing guru in your social circle right away today.